Let's just begin with a word of prayer.
Man who does not walk in the counsel of the wicked, or stand in the way of sinners, or sits in the seat of mockers. But his delight is in the law of the Lord, and on his law he meditates day and night. He is like a tree planted by the streams of water, which yields its fruit in season, and whose leaf does not wither. Whatever he does prospers. Not so the wicked; they are like chaff, blows away. Therefore the wicked will not stand in the judgment, nor sinners in the assembly of the righteous. For the Lord watches over the way of the righteous, but the way of the wicked will perish.
Very good. I was just looking at both the ESV and the NIV.
David wrote a lot of them.
David wrote a lot of them.
For most any area that might affect you, like sadness, joy, hard times.
Good, they cover all. Do just that, and so in that way they're valuable, and they teach us also how to pray even if we're using our own words. There's one other characteristic about the Psalms that has to be kept in mind as we begin to look at them, and that is that the Psalms are poetry and they're not prose. And so the difference between prose and poetry is prose is going to just kind of call a dog a dog. But poetry is not going to do that. Poetry is going to go into this flowery description of he who has four paws and barks continuously. Never use the word dog, really. So that's what we're dealing with when we're dealing with the Psalms. We're dealing with poetry, and we have to kind of understand what the poetry, the figurative language, is pointing us to. So as we look at Psalm 1, we notice that there are some editorial adjustments or editorial marks that are included here, and this is this comes from having to read the Bible in English. We're dependent on translators who take the Hebrew Bible in this case and tell us what it means, what it says. And you are sort of obligated to be sort of trustworthy that they're telling you the right thing. And every once in a while, one version will say something a little different than another version. And in this case, the words are actually very, very similar. However, there is another editorial comment that is included in your Bible. Can you see what it is? In Psalm 1. Notice that there are some breaks in between the verses. So in the NIV, the break is after verse 3. And so verse 1 begins to talk about the blessed man and what he does, what he doesn't do, and what he's like. And then you get a break. And then verse 4, you get the opposite. Not so the wicked. So the first grouping was all about the blessed man. The second grouping, all about the wicked. Now, if you're using the ESV, it's not the same. So in the ESV, the break comes after verse 2. And so you got the blessed man. He doesn't do this. He doesn't do that. But then you have a break, and it's, he is like a tree planted by streams of water. And you are including verse 4, the wicked are not so. And there's just a bit of an editorial comment that is being made here by the translator of the text that you're reading. He wants you to see these two grouped together versus the ESV that wants you to see these three grouped together. And there's something to be heard from that. In our case today, it's not a significant hearing that changes things. But as you read the scriptures, as you read the Psalms in particular, that's one of the things that you're going to pay attention to. Just these little sort of editorial ways in which thought is expressed. And sometimes it's just simply by how the verses are grouped together with the space between them. The divisions that are in the ESV are threefold. You've got first three verses that deal with the blessed man. It's pretty clear cut. Verses 4 and 5, not so the wicked, and what's going to happen to them. And then verse 6, you have this sort of summary, how the Lord watches over the way of the righteous, but the way of the wicked will perish. Kind of a summary of the whole psalm so far. In the NIV, the ESV, you've got that final conclusion sort of lumped in with the description of the wicked man. So let's just go through this verse by verse. In verse 1, the key word there is blessed. Blessed is the man. So the very first word in the psalmody is a positive word. It's not woe is the man, and that's the first word in the Psalms you hear, but it's blessed is the man. And so we want to just sort of pin down a little bit. What does this word blessed mean?
Is there a difference in blessed and blessed?
No. Yeah.
Forgiven.
To be forgiven, okay. In God's favor. There's a real good way to put it. Yep. Forgiven is closely connected to being in God's favor. Any other thoughts? All right. When we think of being in God's favor and when we speak of being blessed, what are we usually, let's just take away the first part of that, of what I just said. When we usually think of being blessed, what do we think of? What is it? What constitutes the blessed life?
We have what we need.
Have what we need.
Good health.
Good health.
Material or earthly.
We have some material, earthly needs to make life comfortable. What's that? That we must have done something right. Yeah. Only Jerry would come up with that one. Anything else? So the Psalms begin with, "Blessed is the man." There is another, there's someone else who takes the Psalms, Psalm 1 in particular, and writes his own psalm or sermon from that. And it goes like this: "Blessed are the poor in spirit. Blessed are those who mourn. Blessed are the meek. Blessed are the merciful, the pure in heart, the peacemakers. Blessed are blessed are you when men revile you and persecute you." So this preacher begins with the word blessed, just as in Psalm 1. How does he describe what it means to be blessed? Material possessions so that you're comfortable, good health, happiness, peace.
You're blessed when you're miserable, when you feel miserable, when things aren't going right, you're still blessed.
All right. So
Follow the ways God wants you to go. That's basically what he's saying. Everything God wants you to do, if you're doing those things, you're blessed.
if you're doing those things, then people are going to hate you and persecute you and say all manner of evil against you because of me. Yeah, that comes with it. That's not why you are blessed. That happens to the people who are blessed. And one of the points we're going to make as we move through this is just this distinction of how one thinks about the fact that he is a blessed man as opposed to a wicked man, and how it is not based on something that we do. And so the psalmist here is very careful in that the very first word that he gives us is this, blessed is the man. It's not, let me tell you a little bit about the behavior of this guy and then blessed is this guy, because this is the way he acts and behaves. You're blessed before anything ever happens, before you do anything, or whether it be right or wrong, right? And so that's one of the things that we hear in this first psalm in the psalmody. So in verse 1, here's a bit of the poetry. Blessed is the man who does not, so here we're going to get behaviors. He's already been blessed. But now here's the behavior that corresponds to that. And the behavior is described in the negative. Not what he does, but what he doesn't do. So he doesn't walk in the counsel of the wicked, doesn't stand in the seat of, in the way of sinners, doesn't sit in the seat of mockers. So we're not going to talk about what it means to the wicked, the sinners, and the mockers. I think we all get that. But poetically, there's a progression here that I think is good just to kind of see. The progression goes from sitting, standing, and walking. Now, what is kind of said in the poetry? I mean, we would like to say, a dog is a dog, move on. But no, the poet says sitting, standing, walking. What is the progression of thought that is being expressed there?
Kind of like how you mature in life. You start as a baby and you grow and you go from sitting to standing to walking.
All right, there's a progression there, isn't there? And maybe even the thought of a child, a baby, is a good comparison to make. That's real good. That's nice. How about Kim?
It's just everything that you do, and you're sitting, you're standing, you're walking. That's what you do every day in life. You do all of those things.
Okay, but here there's a progression. You start with sitting. What does it mean to sit in the seat, sit in the way of sinners? Any of you live in the way of sinners?
All of us.
Yeah, all of us do. But what does it mean to sit down now?
Settle yourself.
Ah, there you go.
Settle.
So when you came into Bible study, you weren't just continually milling around, just I'll catch a word here, a word there, and then off you go. No, you sat down. And what does that mean? It means you're here to pay attention. You're here to listen. Blessed is the man who does not sit in the way of sinners, or stand. Now, once you stand in the way of sinners, sit in the way of wicked, stand in the way of sinners. You're sitting, you're listening, and when you stand up, you're ready to walk in the way of sinners, aren't you? There's a progression. You've just sat, you've taken in the word of sinners. Now you're standing up and you're ready to walk in them. And stand in the way of sinners or sit in the seat of mockers. So there's this progression of sitting, standing, walking that the blessed man doesn't do. He's already been blessed. It's not like you can't do this or else you won't be blessed. Already been blessed, but you just don't do this. So how do we, and here's where, we apply this psalm to our own life. How is it that we sit in the, he does not walk in the counsel of the wicked, stand in the way of sinners, or sit in this. How do we do this? How does this look in real life?
When you're with someone or a group of people or something, and they're saying or doing or acting a certain way, and you don't remove yourself from it, you just join in because that's what everybody else is doing.
Okay. Can you be in a group of folks who are obviously thinking and acting contrary to God's word, and you know it? Can you be in that group with them? Sure you can. You don't have to sit among them. You don't have to stand. You don't have to walk with them. But you can, in fact, the Lord calls us to be in the world, right? Not of it, in it. So yeah, you can. What are some other ways in which we find ourselves sitting, standing, and walking in the way of the wicked? The media we consume.
Social media or movies or books or
TV, news.
news.
Yeah.
A lot of times, like kids in school, they're grouped together, and they're going to be amongst people that are contrary to their beliefs. And
Yeah.
they're forced to be there, basically, when you think about
Yeah.
it.
Yeah,
Or
that's
the
a-
workplace.
The workplace and the classroom. What a great example. I mean, you can't not be in the classroom. You can't not be in the office.
Alcohol and drugs.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. And so what the psalmist asks us to do here is think about your life. Where are the places where you might find yourself sitting, standing, walking in the way of the wicked? So let's see. Let's move on to verse 2. Verse 2 begins with but. So I've always thought that one of the most overlooked words in the Bible is this word but. Whenever you come across the word but in the Bible, you know something significant is about to be said. Don't do this, but here's what you are to do. The but just sort of signals, I better pay attention to whatever this is that follows. But his delight is in the law of the Lord, and on his law he meditates day and night. So here you have the contrast to verse 1. He doesn't sit, stand, or walk in the way of the wicked, but this is what he does do. And his So what he does do is he finds his delight in the law of the Lord. Now we're going to unpack the law of the Lord a little bit, but before we do, what does it mean that he finds his delight in this? How many of you read the Bible on a regular basis? Don't raise your hand. How many of you want to read the Bible on a regular basis and for the most part have sort of organized your day? It's easier to do in retirement, I'm finding, around some sort of time that's set aside just for that. And after a while, it becomes not at all a tedious exercise, but it becomes your delight. And then you come across something in the scriptures that opens the door, and the shades go up, and you see something that you'd never seen before. And it's precious and it's wonderful, and you delight in the law of the Lord. This is what the blessed man, because he's been blessed, this is what he is looking for. He's not looking so much for how do I understand the scriptures better. If only I could read the New Testament in the Greek and the Hebrew. Boy, then I'd really have it. No, I can tell you, that does not lead to delight. Delight is this, I have found something in God's Word that puts a lot of the pieces together for me, and gives me a picture of Jesus in a way that I had never seen him before, and it's a wonderful thing. It's like this born again. Daryl?
Yeah, it's kind of like, where I was reading and I got to Romans one time, I got to chapter 8, and I said, I found the loophole.
Yeah.
Because
found the loophole. Nice.
I'm always a sinner, but the reason I am is it's not my fault.
Yeah.
But that, that act was delight to me. That said, really, I've got a chance.
There you go. Yeah. And you get to the 8th chapter of Romans, and you've gotten all the way through the first 7 chapters, which makes you just want to go to bed and never get up. And then you get to the 8th chapter, and it's like, oh, I see what it was all about. It was to turn my face so that I see my need.
I wanted Pastor Barry's me to use that chapter 8 and do the sermon topic on it.
Yeah, not bad.
Because I need that bad.
Yeah. So let's take a closer look at this thing called the law of the Lord. His delight is in the law of the Lord. So if you were here the last time we were together, I told you a little bit about this word Lord and how it is typeset in a strange way. And so you have these capital letters instead of regular capital L, small o, small r, small d. And as I said, this indicates the Hebrew word Yahweh as opposed to Lord and Master. So Yahweh, the personal name that God gives to Moses, and Moses uses, and when he goes to Egypt, he doesn't just say the Lord sent me, because Egypt's got all its lords, but this is the personal name of the God of Israel, and this is what only believers really understand and use, the personal name. It's theirs to use. But now the law of Yahweh. So the word for law in the Hebrew is Torah. I'm sure you've heard that one, Torah. And it stands not just for law as in thou shalt and thou shalt not, but the law of the Lord, the Torah, Yahweh, is the whole word and counsel of God. The law that condemns and the gospel that sets you free, and all the history that you wonder, why in the world is that there? It's all the Torah Yahweh. Now, the interesting thing is that this word Torah is derivative, and it comes from the Hebrew word Yahrah. And Yahrah is the word for to shoot an arrow. So if you shoot an arrow, you yahra the arrow. And so when the Hebrews use the word Torah, they're really saying the word or that which is shot from the Lord or by the Lord. So the Torah, Yahweh, the word of the Lord, is that which he shoots like an arrow from a bow and arrow. And where is he aiming it? Right at your heart, and it always hits the mark. This is, so when we read but his delight is in the law of the Lord, which is the psalmist's way of saying, man, he is just so delighted that the Lord hit his mark with his word. It got him right in the heart, and it causes him delight. That's the idea. And on his law, then, he meditates day and night. So this business of meditating, what is that? What does it mean to meditate?
Think about the subject matter, or how it would apply to me,
Yep,
things like that,
good. Think about how the word applies. Isn't it just about what we're doing here? We're just kind of rolling it around, feeling it out, kind of looking for all of the cracks and the grooves that we can get down into. Luther used to describe it as climbing a tree. That you meditate on the word of the Lord, it's kind of like climbing a tree, and you get up the trunk a while, and then you go out a branch. But then to really meditate, you go out onto a smaller branch. And then when you're really brave and want to really get into it, you go out where the leaves are, and you start exploring each. That's meditating. And then you come back, and then you go off another little branch. And you spend all your life, and you never get all through this tree of life that has all these branches. And you meditate, you think about it, you roll it around, see what comes out of it. So we meditate on the law of the Lord, on this Torah Yahweh. And when does he do it? He does it day and night. So there's poetic language. What would we have said instead? All the time. Yeah. Or constantly. That's not nearly as pretty as day and night. But that's the way the psalmists write. Huh? Day and night. And so verse 3 then. Let me back up. I did a little digging into this word meditate. And it too is an interesting word. In the Hebrew it's hagah. So he hagahs on the word of the Lord day and night. It literally means to murmur or to mumble. And so sometimes these words, these dead language words, you know, they're just trying to describe what it sounds like. So to mumble. That is hagah. It's like, what did you just say? Hagah. Well, that doesn't make, well, yeah, that's what it means to just meditate on it. And it's a verbal activity, and so it's an out loud activity. It's kind of why we're taking the time here to sound out some of these old words. They're worth hearing, meditating on. So this word's not used a lot of places in the Old Testament, but I found one where it is used. Isaiah chapter 31, verse 4. I don't expect you to know this, but Isaiah says, as a lion or a young lion growls over its prey. The word is Haggah. So the lion or the young lion has just killed its prey, and it's just sort of growling over it. It's just taking it in. It's enjoying it. It's sniffing it. It's licking it here. It's taking a bite there. It's just enjoying this meal that has been provided for it. And that's kind of the way we read not just the Psalm, but the Torah Yahweh, the word of the Lord. We just sniff it, we growl over it, we mumble, we murmur over it. And historically, the Bible is always, like any other book really, is no different, has always been read out loud. And it's really, I didn't know this until just recently, but it's really not until the late 1700s that we began to read silently. And so you get this built-in murmuring over the word of the Lord that comes simply by reading it out loud. One of the classic examples in the scriptures of this is in the book of Acts. And who is it that goes up to the chariot? It's Philip. Goes up to the chariot with the Ethiopian on it. And Philip's at a distance, but he hears him reading from the book of Isaiah. Well, how's he hear him? Well, he's reading out loud. And so he goes over. And he says, do you understand what you're reading? And the guy says, no, how could I? I need somebody to explain it to me. And they murmur over it together. Kim?
Is that, it makes me think about the Jewish people, even today, their children, they teach them they have to read out loud in front of all of them. Yep. They have a ceremony.
Yeah.
But to learn how to do that, they make them practice and practice and practice.
Yep.
And you have to, and they do it out loud.
Very good.
Yeah.
Very good.
I think of at the Western Wall when they're when the Jewish people are at the Western Wall and they're hungry.
Yeah. Very much out loud, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, very good. That out loud thing is important. I don't know how many of you have ever tried this or do this, but you know, my time in the Word is early morning. Deb's a late sleeper, and so I get it in undisturbed. If she gets up early, I'm like, you go back to bed. This is my time. Yeah, but I've gotten into the habit of reading the Bible out loud to myself, and it is amazing how it opens some things up. It really does. One of the practices of the church to this day is that we speak out loud these things among each other, right? In the liturgy, there's things that are spoken as a whole. We speak them out loud. You know, we don't say, now let's meditate silently on the confession of the church in the words of the Nicene Creed. No, we speak them out loud, and it's by that out loud speaking that we're actually hearing it in a way that we don't when we're silent. So, yeah.
I was just going to say, for me, it's whether I'm praying or reading the Bible, it seems like if it's something subconsciously, when you say it out loud, it's almost like it gives it power.
Yes, very nice. It adds some authority to it. Very good.
Well, I think because when you say something out loud before it comes out of your mouth, you have to process it through your brain. And you have to, sometimes when you're reading to yourself, there's a little bit of your brain that's thinking of other things. But when you know you're going to say it out loud, you're focused on it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, it does require an extra amount of focus.
Yes.
Whereas you can read silently, and part of your mind is still, it's wondering what that text that just came across my phone was saying.
Yeah.
But if you're saying it out loud, you don't have the brain power to hear that as well, I think. I don't. So verse 3 then, he is like a tree planted by streams of water, which yields its fruit in season, whose leaf does not wither. Whatever he does prospers. So real quick, he's like a tree that's been planted. So the Hebrew word here is it's more, the connotation is more of transplanted. So he used to be like one who lived in this arid, dry desert, but he's been uprooted and planted now, or transplanted, next to what? Streams of living water. Right, so this planting idea is an idea of some permanency. It's not, he kind of continues to walk and come and go. No, he's planted there by these streams of living water. And the living water, of course, connects us to Jesus, who talks about streams of living water come from within me, planted in Jesus as we are. We're like trees, well-watered, permanent, and it yields its fruit in season. Here's one idea that I think is worth murmuring over a bit. What does it mean to be yielding your fruit in season?
Correct time.
At the correct time. Does that mean all the time? No, it doesn't mean all the time. In fact, there are some times when the tree just does not have any fruit on it whatsoever. And we're not talking about trees here, we're talking about people. And so there are seasons for the believer, for the blessed man. And in certain seasons, she can be very fruitful. In other seasons, not so much. And I get here's the critique on us pastors. Us pastors need to lighten up a little bit. There are times it's just not your season, and it's okay. It's all right. Somebody else's time, it's their season. We're not all going to be in season at the same time. And then the other idea to a tree planted and it bears its fruit seasonally is, how long does it take before a tree that's planted bears apples? It takes a while. Yeah. I mean, you don't just get planted in the Lord and suddenly start bearing great fruit. It takes time and nurture. And, Jesus tells this parable about, was it a parable or was it this tree that he passes and it's not bearing fruit? And he says to us, you got to dig around it and you got to put what on it? Manure. I've never preached on that. But what does it mean for the Lord to put manure on you? It just means that he's trying to fertilize the fruit. In all that he does, he prospers. The word prosper here is not what we typically associate the word prosper with. It's not he benefits materially. That's got nothing to do with it. It means that in all that he does, there's some good that comes out of it because it's rooted in his blessedness and the way that he walks and doesn't walk. And sometimes you can't measure it, sometimes you can't put it in the bank.
If you read that sentence, whatever he does prospers, not him prospering, but what he actually does.
There you go. Good. We're just about getting close to being out of time. Let's look at verse 4. Not so the wicked. They are like chaff that the wind blows away. And so here, from this rootedness of the blessed man, you get the chaff that is not rooted in anything, and the wind takes it away. And that's what it, it's meant to do. You harvest the wheat, you throw it up in the air, the wind blows the chaff away, the wheat falls down. But that's what chaff does, and that's what the wicked are described as. Therefore, the wicked will not stand in the judgment. So here you have a repetition of what we've already heard. The blessed man does not stand in the counsel of the wicked. The wicked man is not going to stand in the judgment. He stood in his wickedness just fine. He's not going to stand in the judgment. nor sinners in the assembly of the righteous. One of the keys to understanding Hebrew poetry, especially the Psalms, is the idea of parallelism. So parallelism means I'm going to say one thought, but then I'm going to right away say the same thought, but I'm going to say it differently. Two of the same thoughts, but said differently in a parallel stream. So if you didn't get me the first time, let me see if I can get it to you better the second time. So that's what's going on here. The wicked will not stand in the judgment. What does that mean? Well, he's not going to be the sinners in the assembly of the righteous. The judgment, the assembly of the righteous, the wicked man's not going to be there. If that helps clarify for you, that's what parallelism does, and the Psalms are all about parallelism. And that's what as you read the Psalms, that's one of the things you look for. Why are they grouped together like this? And the way the Psalms are typeset, you see that. You see a line, and then you see an indented line under it. That's a parallelism right there. And that's the way you should sort of explore that. For the Lord watches over the way of the righteous, but the way of the wicked shall perish. Two thoughts in conclusion. So the Psalms are understood to be the prayers of the church, correct? You've heard this? You're familiar with it. Isn't it interesting that of the 150 Psalms that we say are the prayers of the church, Psalm 1 is not a prayer at all. It never prays to the Lord. It never asks the Lord for anything, never confesses. And so, conceivably, what the Hebrews have done, they've arranged these Psalms that have been written in such a way that before you get into praying for the Lord, to the Lord, you're going to begin just with this introduction to the blessed life that moves you to meditate, to chew on, to absorb or get yourself ready to pray. Psalm 2 is much like it. It doesn't pray either. Psalm 1 and Psalm 2 were originally thought to be all one psalm, broken in half. Psalm 2 ends with the blessed man. You can see the connection. So there's one thought. This is the Scripture's way of just getting us ready to pray the Psalms. 1 minute. Last thought. Who is the blessed man? Huh? We are. Are we everything that this psalm points us to? No. Isn't it interesting that it is, blessed is the man, not blessed is a man. The definite article here makes all the difference. There is the man out there who is exactly what this psalm is speaking of. And who, therefore, when he prays, you and I can be sure he's heard in his prayer. The blessed man is Jesus, who does not walk in the way of sinners or sit in the seat of mockers, but his delight is in the law of the Lord. And so it's not that we find ourselves in this psalm so much as we find Jesus right here. And you're going to find him in every psalm. Okay? Good. See you in church.